All right, guys, so today I'm going to show you how to use pen and ink to illustrate value using 3 different techniques. You'll notice I'm not starting out with pen. I've got a 2H pencil. If you can see, it's a 2H pencil because I am going to sketch in here very lightly before getting started what it is I'm going to do. And the reason I want to do that is because if you make a mistake in pencil, you can fix it. If you make a mistake in pen, it's really hard to fix. So I've got an eraser here. I've drawn out the 3 spheres that I'm going to shade. I've put in their cast shadows, and I'm going to do this one in hatching. I'm going to do this one in cross hatching. And this I'm going to do in stipple. Those are the 3 techniques that I want you guys to practice using at the end of today's lesson or for your work to turn in today. So again, I just kind of want to indicate to you guys that the light source, I'm going to pretend because I've got my cast shadow here, the light source is going to be directly across from the cast shadow. So if the cast shadow is going in this direction, then the light source has to be coming in from here. I'm going to adjust them all so that they're a little bit the same, just because that makes my life easier while I'm working on them. So the light, LS for light source, is over here, and my cast shadow is directly across from it. So as I go to do my work, you're going to see the development of a highlight, right? And it's okay to go in and sketch those because when you work in pen and ink, after you put the pen on the paper, you erase the pencil, right? So it's okay to have this stuff in here real lightly. I'm gonna have a real skinny reflective highlight, and then from here to here, I'm gonna transition, right? From here to here in the direction of the light source, from core shadow to penumbra to highlight. So I'm just going to real carefully put in a really thin indication of where my reflective shadow is going to be. So yeah, I feel like I'm ready to start shading these. I am going to show you first the technique of hatching. And I was going to use one of these microns. This is a type of pen that is often used by artists. So I'm going to test it on my paper before I do anything. And now it probably takes a second. One of the things you usually want to do with your pen is give it a chance to see how long does it take to dry on the paper you're using. So you can see the second one I made, I let it sit a little bit longer and it didn't smear. And that allows me to know how long do I have to wait before I erase the pencil underneath my pen, okay? So, you know, and you can use your pink eraser for this, and depending on the paper and the pen, you know, you shouldn't have to work too hard to erase 2H pencil. So I'm gonna come in here. The first thing I wanna warn you is that you do not outline what you've done. All right, so I don't want to come in here and draw a circle around my sphere because objects in real life, they don't have outlines. So you want to come in here and start doing hatching. Hatching is lines around or that do not overlap. So I'm going to start by kind of going around my sphere, and it's okay to not connect them. I think it actually looks better when you're hatching. Now, there's 2 schools of thought with hatching. You can go in what's called a contour hatch, where you follow the shape of the sphere, or you don't have to do that. I'm going to show you, but you'll notice my lines, they don't have to go like the whole way around. You don't want to do that. You kind of want to let them begin and end, but they're not teeny tiny either. So this is one of those things that you can just kind of play around. Now, the key to hatching successfully, not an egg, but with pen and ink, there's an art teacher joke for you. The key is that, one, they cannot overlap. And as with all of the techniques I'm going to show you today, you have to create value by putting more lines or more dots closer to one another. So the way you increase the value in the object is by placing the lines closer to one another. So the lines don't cross over when you're hatching. They flow in one direction, but they get darker or lighter depending on how close the lines are to one another. So I am going to start adding some more lines in here in the same direction, because this is my umbra, right? The darkest part of my sphere. So you could come in here and color it with your pen, but the point is to actually create the value if you want to do it legit with lines. Now, when it comes time to do this stipple, which is lots of dots, I'm going to give you guys some tricks to make the darker areas faster, but also look more legit. So as I'm going to kind of keep coming in here and creating more lines, you'll start to see as I kind of separate them out. Now, I believe in your supply packets, I gave you guys a 005 micron pen, which is super skinny compared to the one I'm using. See how much thinner it is? But I also gave you a Sharpie pen, and I had a hard time getting the cap off. See how much thicker that one is? So obviously I'd do this much, much faster if I were using a Sharpie, but I like to select my pen based on the size of the drawing. And since these are tinier spheres, and I don't want to use a big thick pen. Like, I wouldn't want to come in here and do this with a thick Sharpie. So now that I'm kind of approaching the highlight and transitioning here, I am going to start spreading my lines out. Now, when I first started talking to you guys about creating value in your artwork, I might have talked about how some people have the ability to kind of blur their eyesight. And if that's something you can do, this is definitely one of those times where you can kind of play around with that. And kind of make it so that you can see where you need to add value. So as I'm looking at this sphere, I can see that I probably need some more lines down in here. And I'm just being careful not to cross over my lines, but to keep them all going in the same direction. So to be honest with you, hatching, not my favorite technique. And the reason is it's hard for me. It's hard because I have a shaky hand. And so it's hard for me to keep my hand steady and to keep all my lines going. But as long as my my lines are consistent, so I guess if you want to go crazy, as long as I'm consistently shaky, It's okay. But the point here is to keep all of these going in the same direction. And I can come in here and get super close to my reflective shadow. All right, like that. So I'll finish this one up in time lapse. In the meantime, I'm going to show you guys cross hatching. Cross hatching is hatching, except you can allow the lines to cross over one another. And so it's actually probably a little bit easier for some people because you can allow those lines. So I'm going to come in here first, and the key with cross hatching is to not get scribbly with it. So you can't go in circles. It has to be done in lines. And the key is to keep your lines consistent. So notice as I'm putting these in, all my lines are the same length. Now, I'm going to go in another direction. So now you can see they're cross hatching. They're crossing one another. Cross hatching lines. Okay. And in the dark areas, I don't have to just do in 2 directions. I can do in 3. And this one actually goes a little faster because when you get good at it and you're good at keeping your lines consistent and the same, you can actually just leave your pen on the paper and go back and forth like this to create. And then to kind of make it look like a little bit more legit, I just add a little bit more to the edge there. So now I'm going to work my way around the shape. And the key is, guys, this is really the clutch part, is to work in these tiny little hatch lines, right? I would say they're a quarter, no more than a ½ inch. And to respect the contour or the shape, right, of the object. So you don't want to do a circle by shading straight lines that across it. You want to make sure that your shading respects that curve that is the circle. Okay, so I am going to continue here, and you'll see it'll start to get lighter as I spread the lines out, right? And I do find that I blur my vision. I kind of let my eyes, my focus kind of, I don't know what you would call it, get like a little fuzzy when I'm doing this. And it helps me to kind of identify the areas where I need to add a little bit more value, where I need to make things darker. If you don't have the ability, or it makes you uncomfortable to blur your vision, step away from your drawing and you can see. So as I just moved back in my chair, I could see like, I need to have a little bit more shading in here, and this shape is a little bit wonky. So I'm going to come in here. So how are you creating value when the pen is black, right? How do you create areas of gray? And that is what you do by allowing the white of the paper to show through. So it's almost like creating an optical illusion, because you have to kind of step away from it. You're not creating actual gray. You're creating the illusion of gray. All right. Now, I know for me at least, it's very tempting to come in here and just go cover the whole thing, but you can't. You really have to be patient and come in here and spread these out. All right, so I'm going to finish this one up as well in time lapse. Before I move on, I want to show you stippling. So stippling is probably the technique that is the most time consuming and the one that I find students get the most frustrated with, because it does take a really long time to use the pen tip to make these lines, dots, okay? And so what I would suggest is that if you are going to do the stippling technique, it's okay to switch to a thicker pen, just slightly thicker, right? Like that's not that much thicker, but trust me, it's probably double the thickness of my 02 micron. So it's gonna speed me up considerably. And I am just using the dots to create the dark areas. Now I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna do the edge of the cast shadow right there so that I can create the umbra. Now see how I'm going in here and I'm drawing a line? One of the things that you can do with stipple is you can come in and you can put the dark areas in. You can actually do this with hatching and with cross hatching as well. Those techniques are not, they don't take as long. So as long as you do this in a way that is not too scribbly, like nice and slow, so that the ink goes on the paper nice and smoothly, and that you can't look at it and see the lines as the marker or pen went onto the paper, you're fine with going in here. You'll be fine if you go in here and just kind of color in the darkest part of the sphere. The key is to then stipple the edge of it. You can call this faux stippling if you want. So you stipple the edge so that it looks like you did dots, right? And by the time I'm finished with this, it will be less obvious that that's how I created that particular dark area. It'll be less obvious that I went in and colored it, right? So I can do that for the cast shadow as well. I can come in here and just color it in. But then as I get towards the edges, I'll just do a rough stipple, kind of fake it, all right? So this one, you know, I've seen students do this in a number of ways, and let me tell you what you should not do. Do not go out and buy a 12-pack of Sharpies and bundle them all in your hand and then do this. It won't come out. And you don't want to be violent with your dotting or haphazard. So I've seen kids who they'll dot their paper and they'll be dotting and dotting and dotting, and they're not even looking at what they're doing anymore. And they don't realize after a while that they've been dotting in the same place and it just looks stupid. Or it's a waste of time, right? So you want to be cognizant, careful, and thoughtful about where you are placing your pen on the paper. I feel like this technique becomes very zen after a while. Like you can really kind of start to meditate or think about other things as you're doing it. I do find that with all of these techniques, I tend to get a bit of an arm cramp. So, you know, it's okay to put your pen down and give your arm a good shake every now and then. That's fine. Just don't put your pen down, shake your arm, go get a drink from the fridge, make yourself a bowl of cereal, and forget that you're, you know, doing things. So, you know, it takes some time, but you keep doing this and you will get it. So today's lesson, you are going to practice all three of these techniques just in rows, creating one long gradient strip. tomorrow, or the next time I see you, you will be using one of these techniques, the one that you like the most based on your work today, to shade a sphere, to shade a large sphere. And you have that worksheet in your folders already. If you get so into this that you want to get a jump start, but you basically pick the technique that you like the most, and that's the one that you're gonna practice with on the sphere. Okay, I'm gonna finish these up in time lapse so that you can see and you don't have to stare here and watch. All right.